In a world that can be challenging, and at times unpredictable, it's hard to find moments to focus on what you need. Join Stephanie James on The Spark as she guides you to use your inner flame to ignite your best life. As a best-selling author, psychotherapist, transformational life coach, and international show host, Stephanie is dedicated to helping you create a life that takes you, your goals, and your passions to the next level, so you can live a life that is fully lit up and fully alive. She believes that your life is meant to be a beautiful expression of the things that light you up. That by living your dreams, you give permission to others to do the same. Are you ready to feel alive and inspired to fuel your dreams and put a fire behind your desires? Let's ignite a spark in one another that will illuminate the world. The Spark, with your host Stephanie James, starts now.
Welcome to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. So excited to be here on this episode with Alan Steinberg, MD. We're going to be talking more with Alan in just a moment. But first of all, I just wanted to welcome all of you to The Spark. It's been so wonderful to be here with Transformation Talk Radio. Loving my new station. So thankful for an amazing team and so thankful for you. Just amazing listeners. I've loved getting the feedback and all of the comments on Facebook. Thank you all so much for listening. So many things up ahead. If you are wanting to find out the latest events that I am doing, or look at my book or my upcoming film, When Sparks Ignite, just go to www.stephaniejames.world and you can see what's there. And there's always a free offering. Just put your email in and you'll get a free guided visualization on igniting the spark within. So excited to have you join us tonight. As I said, tonight my guest is Dr. Alan Steinberg, and he's a board-certified internal medicine specialist practicing with the Cedars-Sinai Medical Group in Beverly Hills, California. And he also serves as one of the attending physicians of the NBA's Los Angeles Clippers. So I'm so excited. His first book was The Insider's Guide to HMO, which garnered favorable reviews in the Los Angeles Times. And he's had other publications and appearances on the Today Show, 2020, C-SPAN, and really helped, this book helped sway the direction that healthcare was heading in the late 1990s. So it's really exciting to be talking to him today about his life, his experiences, and his new novel, To Be Enlightened. It's a work of visionary fiction, inspired by some of his own experiences as a lifelong practitioner of Transcendental Meditation. And so I am just thrilled and honored to have you, Alan, with us on The Spark.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we just had such a great conversation before we got on the air. I'm just hoping that we can continue some of these wonderful pieces here. And, when I saw first the cover of your book and that beautiful picture, I was really struck before I ever even read a word, this title, To Be Enlightened. And I know that can mean different things to different people. What does it mean to you?
It really is about the quest, about human potential, about what we can be. The protagonist is a philosophy professor, and he just felt like he didn't belong in this world, that it could be better, that he could be better, that there was something more he could strive for. It really is about someone born a seeker and to be enlightened is aspirational. That's what he wants. He knows that there's something more that spark within can be ignited, and he can become that spark. That's what it's about.
So what we were talking about a little bit is how maybe this paralleled some of your own life experience.
It does. It definitely does. I mean, I learned to meditate in 1975. Literally, in 1972, at the dinner table, my father and my older brother wasn't a doctor then, my father was, but now, now he's a doctor. And we always talked about medical stuff. And they published an article looking at people who had learned to meditate very early. And and this is in 1972, it was published in Science, and they did an excerpt in Scientific American. And the idea was that people, in the first time they meditated, back then, most of the research was done on Transcendental Meditation, that the first time they meditated, they were 2 times more relaxed than the deepest part of their own sleep. And they were sort of their own control group. And, the study, everyone, the editorials, oh my gosh, first time ever we've seen people who are now significantly more relaxed than when they're sleeping. Maybe we won't have to sleep. People can, it was like this whole question of what's going to happen. What does this mean? And it was replicated, and it was sort of a groundbreaking work that they actually used a standard model of relaxation. How relaxed is the person? Oxygen consumption, CO2 production, galvanic skin response. And there was a standard model of, score. So the people, it was a very easy experiment. They took these kids, they had them hooked up, with a thing in their mouth, and they sat there. These poor kids, these poor college kids, and they said, "All right, we're going to record you for 10 minutes with your eyes open." They get a number, the number is 100. Then they said, "All right, close your eyes," and they, after 10 minutes, their number is 75. They said, "All right, lie down for 10 minutes," and their number is now 60 in terms of relaxation. So, all right, come back tonight. We're going to hook you up, and you're going to sleep here. And we're going to look at your, get these numbers. And around, 3, 4 a.m., their number is, 40. Okay, went from 100 eyes open to lying down, sleep of 40. Makes perfect sense. So, all right, come back in a few days, and before lunch, we're going to teach you how to meditate. And they hook all these poor kids up and everything else. And the kids, are sitting there doing their first meditation. And in the first meditation, the number goes down to 20. So deepest part of sleep on average was 40. These, of course, I'm just coming up with numbers.
Sure,
but,
sure.
So it was, people had never seen that before. There had been stories of people in India where they would go and they would put these people in a box, and, they wouldn't breathe for, hours maybe, or day, this severe, amazing hypometabolic states. But it was all in India. This was just American college students at UCLA. And it was huge news. So anyway, one night at dinner, my father brought that up. We talked about it. I'm thinking, oh, that's sort of interesting. A few years later, my mom is getting dressed in the middle of the week. I'm like, where are you going? She doesn't usually, this is 1975. She says, oh, our rabbi at our Jewish temple down the block, he's sponsoring a lecture on Transcendental Meditation. I'm like, oh yeah, that was what they did in that study. Can I go with you? So I went down. Turned out one of the teachers at the meeting was one of our neighbors down the block. So after the meeting, I went over and I said, oh, would you mind teaching me? She said, yeah, come over tomorrow. I'll teach you. And this sweet, kind woman who was my neighbor, we didn't know each other well, but I knew, of her and had met her, taught me how to meditate when I was 17, a long time ago. Been doing it ever since.
Wow. So you've been reaching that state of 20, so to speak, for a really long time, and right. I know from I wasn't doing the research in 1975. However, I do know from some of the research that I've read in longitudinal studies, how it actually, people like you that are long-term meditators, that it actually builds up brain matter in the prefrontal cortex, which is, my God, that's a place we want to have our brain building. It's the self-soothing, it's all, our executive decision maker, how we regulate emotions.
Right. Yeah. The brain is very plastic. And as the body is too, if you exercise, you can, if you become a marathoner, you can measure people and you could take, 50 people who run marathons and 50 people who swim, and you can tell, oh, you must be a marathoner by the different types of muscles, how their body's shaped, the body changes based on what you do. If you do it long enough, your body adapts and becomes what, you are what you do, you are what you eat. That's part of the idea of what enlightenment is. Enlightenment, if there is such a thing, it's part of just the human potential, what we can be. It's not easy. It doesn't happen. There's lots of other factors that go in, diet and exercise, and believe it or not, karma, all of these factors. But eventually you can potentially, the idea is your body can make a phase transition and actually go into the state. And ideally it's permanent. So that's the idea of what enlightenment is. It's a permanent change based on changing the body and the mind, the physiology.
Well, and I feel like, the times that we have been going through, and we can even say, the past 4 years or so, which has seemed more and more challenging, and especially last year, right, with the pandemic. And so people are going through these amazing struggles, challenges that they haven't had to face before. And so how can meditation really serve people during those times? And I can speak from my own experience afterwards, because I've also been meditating for almost 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's great. Yeah. Everyone has their own path. There's certain things that are going to resonate. I think in the end, we all have different paths, and the paths slowly converge on the truth, that spark, that kingdom of God within. So we all need something. We all, what's the use of living if you're not getting better? You need to try to move forward. So those are important issues. And that's what we all need. So in difficult times, within ourself, and we'll talk about this more. What is the self? The self is consciousness, pure consciousness. And when you contact that, even just a little, it's an ocean of unbounded bliss, an ocean of unbounded silence. And that, just touching that, changes your mind, changes your body, changes your outlook. And, you bring a little of it out with you into your day. And then it fades, the stress of the day. And then, ideally twice a day, you contact that and you bring a little out. Some of it fades, some of it comes back. There was an old analogy of, what is meditation and how does it work? And the analogy is, how do the women in India, when they want to make something that's color fast, make something that has, it's red and it won't ever fade. They dip it in the red dye and they put it in the sun. It fades. They dip it in the red dye, on and on and on. And eventually they dip it in the red dye, and it just has become so used to the stress of the sun that it doesn't fade. That's enlightenment.
Wow.
That's the idea, is that you take your awareness to this place of unbounded bliss repeatedly, day after day, year after year. And eventually, even though, you come out of meditation and life is beautiful and everything is good, and then you realize your car won't start. All right. That's life. But eventually, more and more of that peace and bliss stays with you. And then you get out there one day and the car won't start and you're like, all right, I'll walk. That's okay. And it doesn't, you become, your physiology becomes more stable and less labile. And that's the key. That's what we're trying to build with. It's not belief. You're not trying to come up with any belief system or change the way you think. What you're trying to do is change your body and mind physiologically. And we're measuring these things and we can see that things are happening.
Yeah, I was interviewed by a gentleman yesterday who's a scientist, and he was talking about how now they have the imaging where they can see, I believe it's the dendrites wiring together as people are meditating.
Yes. Oh, yeah. The researchers are doing that. Functional MRI, various isotopes. Oh, yeah. And yeah, you can really see. And different types of meditation work on different types of brain, produces different types of results. It's a fascinating field.
Yeah, and I'm so interested in it because I haven't done transcendental meditation. I've done all kinds of different kinds of meditation, sometimes guided, sometimes very directed. One of my life coaches this last year had me doing a very simplistic meditation, but it was so profound for me because of everything going on. I mean, it was literally sitting with my back against the couch, sitting on the floor, breathing into my root chakra, feeling into the ground.
Right.
Just feeling into the ground for 10 minutes and then lying in Shavasana for 10 minutes and just assimilating and integrating whatever it was that came up.
You were grounding.
Yeah. And it was really, really powerful. So, for me, one of the lessons has been that life is going to happen. We're going to have, no matter what, it doesn't matter how quote unquote enlightened we become, we're still going to have life. But what's beautiful is as you cultivate this inner world, what starts happening is, like you said, I love how you said that one day the car doesn't start and you're like, all right, I'll just walk. And so life keeps happening, but our response to it is so much different and we're not derailed.
Right. And that's the key, is you can start that change on a mental level. That's important. But unless you continue it on in a physiological level, you haven't completed the process. Let me tell you about one more experiment that I thought was really profound. Early on, they took a group of college kids again. I guess they're sort of guinea pigs. They're, if you tell them you'll feed them some pizza, they'll do the study. And they hooked them all up to a galvanic skin response. Basically, it just measures it's a lie detector, very minute changes in stress. So they all sat there with this thing on, very simple experiment, but sometimes the simple things are the most profound. And they blew a foghorn at them. And, not loud enough to hurt them, but, it was upsetting. And you can see the first they would do it 10 times. The first time they do it, they're really stressed out. The second time, a little less. The third time, a little less. The fourth time, their body, they know it's coming and their body becomes used to it. You accommodate to the stress. Physiological, nothing about, psychology or mindset. Then they said, and they got a curve for everyone. All the curves are pretty much the same. It was very, just a pure physiology experiment. Then they gave half of them a relaxation tape, listened to the relaxation tape 15, 20 minutes before breakfast, before dinner. The other part they taught to actually do, a mantra meditation, which is a deeper, like a TM kind of meditation.
Yeah.
And they did this for a month. All right, come back in a month, we'll retest you. The people who did the guided imagery, wasn't much change. Their curve looked the same. The people who, and this was in the middle of the day, they hadn't meditated in quite a number of hours. The people who actually were doing the mantra meditation, their curve dramatically changed. The first one, instead of being this high, was this high. And very quickly, it normalized. And, you can do statistics on that. And it was dramatically statistically significant, showing that, as I've been saying, the contacting that ocean of silence, that ocean of peace within, changed their bodies. Their bodies became more stable and less labile, so that when the car doesn't start, they may be upset, but not as upset as they would have been, just as their bodies isn't as upset when the foghorn blows. Doesn't bother. So you're changing the physiology. That's the goal.
So huge and such an important skill. And I love that, you say it doesn't have to be, this isn't about a certain belief system.
No,
this
it's
isn't
nothing about belief. You can think this is a bunch of hogwash. And if you do it and you actually do it with that, you decide, okay, I'm going to actually do this. It works. You don't have to believe anything.
Yeah, I love that. Well, and that's one of the things that really caught me as I was looking at some of the reviews of your book, and just to kind of move to your book a little bit. One of the things it was talking about that comes through in the book is that it evokes the God beyond all religions, reminding us that no religion has dibs on ultimate reality.
No, we all are brought up in different cultures, with different religions, with different beliefs, even within the same religion. I'm Jewish. There's, my brother-in-law and his family are ultra Orthodox, and my wife and I, we're more spiritual Jewish. And then there are people who, Judaism is cultural. I like to eat bagels and lox on Sunday. All right, but it doesn't matter. We all have a certain built into our brain desire for spirituality, that we all want something better. We all sort of know down deep that life can be better. And that is what meditation taps into. And we all end up moving forward. And there's lots of different types of meditation. Some work better, some work worse, but everyone has, we tend to find our level and we tend to move forward. And if we're making progress, if we're moving forward, that's a good thing.
Well, and in the book with Abe, the main character, what part of his dilemma is about, how do I become more enlightened, or how do I pursue this path and then still honor my relationship and do quote unquote normal life. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, Abe is an obsessive character, driven. Abe, try not to give too much of the plot away, but when he was 15, he was taken to a heaven, and he lived a long, 120 years in this heaven. It was a complete life. Then all of a sudden, he was, okay, it's time to go back. What do you mean going back? I'm living here. He goes, no, it is time to go back. And he wakes up back in his 15-year-old body. And he realizes, wait, I just lived 120 years in 7 hours of sleep. And I want to go back there. That's who I am. That's what I want. How do I get back there? And he remembers he was taught that the way to get back there, if you really want to get back there, or a better place, because he was told there were lots of different heavens and lots of different places, and we all, it's all consciousness. It can be whatever, it's a dream state, but on steroids. Consciousness is a field of all possibilities. And he was said, all right, you want to get to another place and never have to go back to Earth again? That's enlightenment. And that's what he was taught. So he was like, I'm 15 years old, but I got to get enlightened because I want to get back there. That was what drove and was his main principle, is he wanted to get back to heaven, a heaven. And he was obsessed. He loved his wife dearly. He loved being a philosophy professor dearly. He loved teaching his class on Vedic philosophy. But in the end, he felt there was a conflict. He felt either I'd become more of an ascetic, I would have to leave that all alone, give it away, not, because it's holding me back, that love, that attachment. Or do I just become a hermit and what do I do? And I don't want to, he was conflicted. He wanted both. In the book, at least for a few weeks, he didn't have to choose. He became enlightened.
Well, so there's so much more that I want to explore with this book with you when we come back from commercial. We have a few minutes left, though, before we take a break. And I'm wondering how, for you, did this also maybe, it's emulating your own spiritual search?
So not always, I mean, I'm a little shy about talking about it, but yes, the real root of the book. So way back in 2012, I was sort of a little obsessed myself, and I was doing more meditation and doing more yoga and doing more pranayama, which is a breathing exercise. And then I went and had a week of what's called Panchakarma, which is an ancient Ayurvedic cleansing where it just heals the body, a deep cleanse, a deep purification. And all of a sudden, everything came together, all the years of meditation and trying to eat right and trying to do right and be a good person. And I was sitting in meditation one day and it all just fell away and I was in samadhi. For the next 10 days, I thought I was enlightened. Now, in retrospect, I wasn't because it went away. And I'm, of course, that's sort of the idea of being in heaven. I was in heaven for 10 days. I mean, my wife still remembers. She's like, yeah, when can I get that husband back? I liked him. he was easy to be with. He was fun. No, my wife and I have a wonderful relationship, but you're a different person. You really make a phase transition. I'm not enlightened now. I wish I was. I've been, it's been 9 years, and I wish I would love to get back there. Will I ever? I may never get back there again. Who knows? I'm going to try. There are people who they've studied who at least claim to be enlightened, and then when we study them physiologically with EEG, brain coherence, and various things that do seem to be markers of this enlightened state. There are people who apparently seem to be enlightened, claim to have all the right things, and then when we measure them and study them physiologically, yes, something's dramatically different. So it appears to be a real phenomenon. Do I really believe there's such a thing? It's sort of too good to be true. I'm a physician. I'm a scientist. I'm a skeptic. I want proof. I want proof. You mean the fact that I had it for 10 days? Well, that was 9 years ago. Maybe I was, wishful thinking, hallucinating, conversion reaction, who knows what. But it lends proof to the idea that maybe we can all get there. It's just not just me. I mean, other people can do it. There's many other people who never went there and never got back. I'm, of course, quite jealous of them. I would love to still be in that state. But so yes, the book is there's a lot of me in the book. I'm not a good enough writer to be able to write about someone else. I can write about myself because I can always look back and say what's going on in my mind, what happened in my life. So there's a lot of me in the book.
Yeah. And well, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing that amazing experience. And we'll be talking more with Alan Steinberg about enlightenment and his wonderful book, Being Enlightened, right? To be enlightened.
To be enlightened.
To be enlightened. And
just looking forward. A little product placement and
yeah, go ahead and hold that book up, Alan, if you will. I want the people that are being able to view this to see this beautiful cover.
Yes.
To be enlightened. So gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. My editor really, I think, did a great job. There's the back.
Yeah, absolutely wonderful. So more as we continue with our conversation with Dr. Alan Steinberg here on The Spark. So welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Stephanie James. We're so glad to have you with us here. I'm here with Dr. Alan Steinberg. We're discussing his amazing new book, To Be Enlightened, and just having such a fun conversation. I'm so glad you've come back to join us after the commercial break. You know, I loved one of the things that you said right before we went to break, and that's that everyone has the potential to transcend, to become enlightened.
Yeah, if you're a conscious sentient being, that and a lot of people, I mean, there's different philosophies of enlightenment. I mean, I am a frustrated philosophy professor. I in college, I was a philosophy major. I thought I was going to become a philosophy professor, almost, but didn't turn out. But the idea of mantra meditation is fairly simple, but it really is, if you think about it, dramatically profound. In every instant of perception, there are three elements. There's the subject, there's the object. Every time, every instant that we're perceiving as conscious beings, subject, object, and then there's something in between the subject and the object, the process of perception. And this is ancient Vedic philosophy. Also, Kant, Immanuel Kant talked about this. It's a basic philosophical concept. The phenomenologists all spoke about this. So meditation is you take a sound that has no meaning, because you don't want to dwell on the meaning. It has a beneficial quality, but no meaning. And you just, when you say the mantra and let it come, it comes from, who says the mantra? Where does the mantra come? I say the mantra. The mantra comes from the subject, from the self. And that's where you want to go. So you say the mantra is slowly over time, it's just wants to get back to where it comes from. And you can bring your awareness. It's like a mirror getting closer and closer. The mantra is a mirror. And eventually you can begin to experience the mantra from where it comes from, which is the subject, which is the self. And that's where you want to go. Eventually, when you reach samadhi, which we all, even in very early meditations, you have just instances of that touch. Then you've found your way back home. The mantra, you're beginning to experience the mantra right where it comes, right where it comes from. You can experience it. So eventually you can experience yourself, because you've traced that back to yourself. So now, instead of being a subject and an object, the object is yourself. So it's the self experiencing the self. And that's the goal of meditation. Is now there's no process of experience. It's direct experience. It's consciousness knowing its own consciousness, awareness knowing its own awareness. You become conscious of your own awareness. I mean, you can say it in many different ways, but now it's direct. Now there's no process of experience. It's direct knowledge. And when you do that, you find it's just it's just your own way of experimenting. You find that, oh, I'm experiencing myself. I'm unbounded. I'm bliss. I'm perfection. I'm the spark that expands and created the universe. That is the goal of meditation.
Beautiful. Yeah, and it struck me with one of the quotes in the book by Lao Tzu, this: he who knows others is wise, he who knows himself is enlightened. And it made me think of, the words above the Parthenon, which are know thyself.
Oh, exactly. It's Vedic philosophy believes that our whole world, our whole universe is consciousness. And so I got it. My other favorite topic is sort of as a amateur philosopher is, what does quantum mechanics? Everyone talks about quantum mechanics, but it really is amazingly profound. Quantum mechanics is modern science. Everything we do, the computer we're talking on, our cell phones, everything is based on quantum mechanics. But there's certain basic ideas in quantum mechanics that if you just think about them, you realize our world is completely different than what we know, what we understand. So there's an idea called entanglement. And they've actually, I mean, Einstein knew about this in the 20s and 30s. In fact, it drove him crazy. He called it spooky action at a distance. And he said, there's something wrong. We have, he's really spent his last part of his life trying to figure out what was wrong with it. And he couldn't, turns out one of the few times Einstein was wrong. They've actually demonstrated this. They've been able to entangle two electrons, and then they put one in a spaceship and orbiting the Earth, and the other is in a lab in Washington, D.C. When you look at when a conscious mind experiences and actually measures one electron instantaneously, even if that other spaceship is on the other side of the Earth, the whole Earth is in between you and that other electron instantaneously changes because you experience it. They were entangled. This is a absolutely known, accepted, no one thinks this will ever be changed. And the theory is, and they've been doing it for bigger and bigger, you could take those two electrons and one would be on one side of the universe and one would be the other side. When a conscious mind experiences one, instantaneously the other changes. So there's really, in some ways, no distance between those two electrons. But everything in the universe is entangled. We're all entangled. We're all part of the same thing. And what does entanglement mean when you think about it from a really basic idea? If instantaneously you can have a change from here to here, it's because there's no distance between the two. They're the same. So all points in the universe, which is what quantum mechanics says, are the same. At a certain basic level, there's only one thing. Vedic philosophy says consciousness. Quantum mechanics is barreling toward the same, I quote this book, the Quantum Enigma, Physics Encounters Consciousness, written by two philosophy professors. And many people, every physicist who looks at it says, they don't say anything that's wrong. We just don't like to talk about this because we don't understand it. It's bordering on metaphysics, beyond physics. But physics stops and can't get past consciousness. It's because consciousness is primary. The whole universe and every universe, the multiverse, is made of consciousness. That's what physics is really that's what Vedic philosophy says. And that's what physics is frightened, but that's where it's pointing. Fascinating, in my opinion.
Well, absolutely. And what I've realized in this last year of doing all of my clients, my coaching clients and my, psychotherapy clients, we do it all on Zoom. Right. And I used to say a lot in the office, like, when we're together, we're exchanging subatomic particles. And so we're like literally becoming a part of one another. But what I've come to experience is even like as in this moment, as you and I are talking and our consciousness is connected, then we're doing the exact same thing.
We're entangled. Yeah.
There's no distance.
It's a common phenomenon. The idea, is there ESP? Can you read other people's minds? Well, according to Vedic philosophy, it's definitely possible. There really is. This is science. There really is no distance between any of us at a certain level. So, it really is both. There's the fullness and the emptiness. There's something and nothingness. And quantum mechanics says, and we have quantum computers that do this. So normally a bit of knowledge is either like in a regular computer, non-quantum computer, it's either a 1 or a 0, something or nothing. And that's all of our computers are based on that. Now, quantum computers, which are infinitely more powerful than our old regular, computers, quantum computers are based on the idea that a bit of knowledge can be three things. It can be something, it can be nothing, or it can be something and nothing at the same time. And like, wait, that doesn't make sense. How could something be something and nothing at the same time? That's basic physics. It's called superposition. And they literally make computers and it works, and they can solve problems that would take our best computer in the world, 20,000 years to solve this problem. Quantum computer can do it in a few seconds. It's because all knowledge is contained in that's quantum ground state. And when you settle it all out, the answer comes out. Wow. But this is just modern physics. I'm not saying, we could have a physicist on here and he'd say, yeah, well, what he's saying is true, but he's drawing conclusions from it. Yeah, okay, that's true. There's physics and then there's metaphysics. But why should I not speculate? The fact that it's so interesting that Vedic philosophy, thousands of years ago, conceived with people, just sitting in meditation. They are now saying the exact same thing that people who do metaphysics based on quantum mechanics are saying. I mean, all of the early people who came up with Schopenhauer, Bohm, Planck, they all ended up being mystics because they were like, whoa, they were reading the Vedas and reading the Upanishads because this is what their science was pushing them toward. All right, is it true? We'll see.
Well, and that's what's interesting, though, is that I feel like in the last 20 years, just spirituality, science, psychology, all merging together.
Yes, and that's what's happening in physics. There's the great desire. I mean, really, ultimately, Einstein spent the last 20 years of his life looking for what we now call the theory of everything. How do we integrate gravity with quantum mechanics? That was really the big, there was all these levels of unification in science. And now the question is, how do we put that all together in something that makes sense? Now they talk about string theory, and everyone's trying to come up with this theory of everything. But ultimately, it's a unification. And the same thing will happen in all the other fields. Once you take the right paradigm, that everything is consciousness, the brain doesn't produce consciousness, that the brain just allows us to experience a screen of consciousness. Once you look at that and you start using that as excuse me, as your paradigm, all of a sudden things start becoming a lot clearer. It's a Copernican revolution. Is if you just posit, if you basically, the first thing you like geometry, 1 point, it has no dimensions, 2 points determines a line, 3 points determines a plane. If you start with certain suppositions, if you start with the idea in metaphysics that consciousness is primary, there's only one thing in the universe, and you move from there, all of a sudden, a lot of the problems of philosophy, the problems associated with quantum mechanics, there are a lot of for years and years, physicists were just told, just shut up and calculate. Don't think about what quantum mechanics means, because if you think about it, it's scary. It's too bizarre. Just do it. It works. We can make your computer, we can make your iPhone, we can do all these things. It all works. Just don't think about what it means. This was a whole generation of physicists. The book Quantum Enigma, that's one of their main points is, yeah, we grew up, we're physicists, we've done this, we do quantum mechanics. We were told growing up as physicists, just shut up and calculate. Don't think about it. If you think about it, you're not going to get tenure. You're not going to get a teaching post. It's this, they called it in the books, the skeleton in the closet. All right, let's open the closet. Let's think about it. I'm toward the end of my career as a physician. Then no one's going to fire me for talking about bigger philosophical ideas. I want to talk about those.
Well, and I think that it's so important, and again, as you're talking about this, what strikes me is if we realize that we're all entangled. We
Yeah.
all have this, we're all in this together. We all have a sense of oneness. Then it does become imperative that it might not be everyone's goal to move towards enlightenment.
That's okay.
And that's okay. And I think too, but maybe the goal becomes moving towards healing, moving towards the best version of yourself, because as you do that, I believe then since we are entangled, then we are affecting one another. So as we become clear conduits for healing, for health, for well-being, then that's affecting, whether you call it the vibration or the frequency of everyone else.
No, exactly. And they've studied these type of things. It bizarrely has been shown to work. There's studies that show that when you get a group of meditators together, they're sequestered in a hotel, just by doing unified deep meditation, you can affect the surroundings, and crime rate goes down, accident rates go down. Well, how can that happen? It does, because we're all connected. Well, the devil is really based on obscuring the truth. He can't, or she can't, or they can't change the truth. They just, they give us lots of possibilities, and that's what the devil is. So yeah, you got to keep that truth under wraps.
Well, and what's ironic and interesting to me about this is that when I've gone on really big spiritual retreats, like I knew something transformational was going to happen. Uh-huh. I'm breaking this. I've already said I'm breaking this pattern, but it's been really interesting that something happens. Yes. So like the car gets a flat tire, or yes, I get lost.
There is something that doesn't want you to go. I talk about it. You'll see in the book. There really is evil in the world, and really what evil wants is for people to succumb to temptation, to go down the wrong path, because ultimately evil is jealous of, it just doesn't, that the fallen angels, it's a whole, they don't want you to find the truth. So there is something in the world that, and do you know the book Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali?
I don't.
You should look it up. Every yoga teacher, it's the basic tome, the basic philosophy of where yoga philosophy comes from. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
How do you spell that?
Patanjali.
So glad I asked you. I would never get that.
Yeah. Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, written about 1800 years ago. But that is the basic, that's the Bible of yoga. It really is. There's the Bhagavad Gita, which is sort of the essence of the Vedas. And that's more theory. This is practical, how to actually do yoga. That it just explains. It's sutras, they're threads. There's only like 130 of them. It's very, very short. It's all the explanation, but that's where yoga comes from. In the Yoga Sutras, he talks about basically, they call it invisible beings in high places, basically who just, they don't want you to find the truth. They don't want you. And Patanjali talks about it. He says it's temptation. If you at a certain level, the temptation of the Buddha, the temptation of Jesus, any great power, great mind is tempted by the wrong path. And Patanjali says, okay, yeah, it's real. He just mentions it and moves on. Says, yeah, they're there. Watch out for them. Don't get tempted by them. Keep moving forward. Don't give in.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things. We don't have to live in a state of fear around these things. And I think it's also to know they exist. What's that?
Absolutely. Life is dangerous. It's sort of, if it wasn't so dangerous, it wouldn't be exciting. There was no consequences.
Yeah, and well, and just one last point on that before we move on, it was very interesting. A year ago in October is when I had my film crew and we started filming our documentary. And the day before filming, I am running through my kitchen to get to my computer so I can put it in my bag and go to work. And my parents had been staying with me because they were having their hardwood floors replaced. And they had their little dachshund dog in the kitchen. And so my mother had put up this foot-high board in between the kitchen doorway opening and the living room where my computer was. It happened to be the same color as the tile. So I'm literally almost running. I walk fast anyway. So I'm just going really fast. Total clothesline hits me right in the shins, flips me over, and I hit my head on the tile floor. Now, interestingly, I had a holy woman from India, Bhavna Shinde, on my show. And actually, she was here visiting from India. So she was in my home. And she said, oh, I know what that was. And that she says, it's one of those kind of forces. And she said, and don't worry, obviously, you were fine. But I did have a slight concussion. I mean, it literally was this serious, wow, how did that happen? I'm a very conscious person. I'm usually feeling like I'm very aware of my surroundings. And yet there it was.
Yeah, I find that in my life and just theoretically, there's, I just think of it as evil in the world. And really its goal is to keep us from moving forward, to make any progress. They're jealous of progress because they didn't make the progress they wanted to. They succumbed to temptation. And so then they want us to too. I mean, sufferers love company.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and so how do we then move towards the light?
You keep your eye on the goal. You're just simple. You take it as it comes. You don't want to worry about tomorrow. You just want to be simple and loving. Practice your self-development so that you just want to become a better person. And you can't force it. We're all going to have good days. We're all going to have bad days. Some days nothing works and everything seems bad. And some days everything works and you don't know why, just those peak experiences. You just take it as it comes. They're out to get us, but you know what? What can you do? You just keep moving forward. Don't worry about them because you can't do anything about them. Just worry about yourself and don't worry much. Just keep the eye on the prize. You do your meditation. You try to be a good person. You try to make the world a little better place. And that's all you can do, and just accept that.
Well, that's sound advice. I think that's really one of the keys. And that we just stay on the path every day. We're in this 24 hours. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. If we can really reel ourselves in, how can I take care of myself in this day? How can I contribute in this day? How can I connect?
Exactly.
I think, those are some of the essential questions.
Yeah, it's the idea. There's an old idea in mindfulness of be here now. But if you try too much, then you're out of the moment. Be here now is just don't try, just be. And meditation cultivates that ability. So it just comes naturally. Let it happen. You'll see and if it doesn't happen, all right, tomorrow's another day.
Yeah, so great. Well, Alan, thank you so much for being here with me. This has just been such a pleasure talking with you. The book is To Be Enlightened, and I imagine it's available everywhere.
Definitely. It's the easiest way is, online, Google it. You can go to my website, alanjsteinberg.com, and you can click on Barnes and Noble, Amazon. If you don't like them, there's smaller booksellers that you can click on. My publisher, Adelaide Books, has it on his website. So there's lots of it. If you want it, you can get it.
Yes, and we'll have all the links available in the show notes.
Great.
So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your sparks and your light with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a delight. You've been a delightful host.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to The Spark with Stephanie James. Remember that you already have what you need to live a life that is fully lit and fully alive. You're already holding the flame. Now it's time to ignite your best life. Learn more at stephaniejames.world. That's stephaniejames.world. And tune in next week at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, only on transformationtalkradio.com. Shine on!